Well, in stark contrast to last year, the weather has been brilliant so far this weekend for practice, for qualifying, for the top 10 shootout. Been very enjoyable, and we are set now for the first of 3 races this weekend. Before we get going, Neil Crompton, talk us through the finer points of Pukekohe.
Well, first of all, Lee, this is a terrific track and all of the drivers really enjoy it. It's got great character and a tremendous history of motor racing in Australasia. 2.82 kilometres clockwise in direction, and the layout of the circuit is such that there's some very thrilling components to it. In particular, this turn number 1, fast and very, very difficult to get right. 2, 3 and 4, a lot of dirt on the road can appear there, make passing very difficult. It is critical to get a good run out of 4 up this very long back straight. 1,250 metres of it to turn 5, the hairpin. Braking is critical. There's a couple of bumps. Talking of bumps, they've completely taken the big bump away between 6 and 7 as we go back to the starting grid. And of course, several parts of this track this weekend have been resurfaced, including turn 1 and all up around the back of the circuit as well, onto the start-finish straight, where this man is sitting at the moment, Craig Lowndes, on pole position, and that increased grip that's available has made these cars pretty quick.
And an update on Craig Lowndes with Greg Rust.
I can tell you, a nervous moment for our pole sitter just prior to this race when the cars exit pit lane. They exit in a formation under the, I guess, the guidance of the officials. Craig Lowndes didn't exit it under his rightful spot. They found a problem with the rear wheel nut on this car. They changed it with the permission of the officials. He still exited prior to the closure of pit lane and took up his rightful spot on the grid.
Thanks, Greg. Well, KFC Zinger is the official burger of V8 Supercars, and we're giving you the chance to have your say on any hot topic in V8 Supercar racing. You'll remember at Adelaide, it was the lack and the abolishment of the warm-up. All you have to do is visit rpmlive.tv, click on the Zinger Hot Topic button and lodge the topic you want us to discuss on air, and you could be in the running to join us at the Men of Motorsport lunch in December. Pleased to say round 1 winner is Robert Spadafora from Doncaster in Victoria. And Robert's Zinger Hot Topic today, Neil, is, are limited test days really saving the teams any money?
Well, the short answer is yes. One of the difficult things, though, when you reduce the amount of on-track testing, you increase the amount of simulated or bench testing. And that's something that gets hotly debated. And addressing that, in fact, Robert, this weekend, we've got an increased practice session available to the teams now on Friday. It's out now to 2 hours, and that gives them something of a make good, if you like, for the time and the track hours that have been taken away over the years with testing being reduced. It's come down to 2005, just 6 days available. Here's a couple of cars at the back of the grid. Matthew White, excluded from qualifying earlier in the Brightech entry for missing the scales. And look at this, Garth Tander, who should have been up there at the pointy end of this field, is back there after an infringement. After qualifying, team manager Rob Crawford released his guys to work on the car while it was still in parc fermé condition. The car had not been released by Steve Brow, the Avesco technical director, to be worked on, and so they have copped a penalty, and they will start car number 16, the HSV dealer team entry of Garth Tander, right at the back.
And that's fairly gutting, because the big man started the weekend, well, a little slowly, then worked his way up and has been at the front for the majority, but now sent to the back. As we take a look at the Talon Tough Tools starting grid, we congratulate Craig Lowndes, our second different pole sitter in as many races this year, as many rounds, I should say. But Neil, the point to talk about today, tight track, it's only 2.8 Ks, as you mentioned, 32 cars on it. How do you execute a pass here? Because it's less than a 1-minute lap.
Well, hold your breath and close your eyes for a few of them. And that's been one of the issues here over the years because of the nature of the circuit, and the cars are so closely matched after qualifying in the shootout. It is very difficult to pass because of that situation. Here is one of them behind that grid at the moment. You can see on the run into the hairpin at the end of the back straight. There's definitely an opportunity there, but there are very few places where you can easily set somebody up and try and give yourself the space that you need to get the job done. Managing the left rear tyre is one of the big issues here. Even though today's race is just 36 laps, you still have to look after the left rear tyre. You can't afford to put a flat spot on a front tyre here under brakes. 12 tyres issued for the course of the weekend for qualifying and 3 motor races, so you've got to manage all that carefully.
It's a track conducive to some pretty decent stoushes too, isn't it? There's good close racing here.
Really, really enjoyable motor racing track to compete on. Combination of a couple of very quick corners coming onto the straight and going off, getting power to the road, going onto the back straight, coming out of the hairpin, that's critical. And it's always had a few bumps here and there, and you've got to get your car working on all those things. Most of the teams have had to stiffen up their cars a little bit this weekend with some more spring to try and capture the grip available in the road now.
Ambient temperature is 21 degrees, track 28, Neil. We're keeping an eye on the skies. There is some cloud cover which could change things. And interesting to note, after speaking to the Dunlop technicians, they have picked up a variance in track temperature in the order of 2 degrees between the older parts of the track and the resurfaced sections.
The man who dominated round one, both races, the Clipsal 500, did not capture the pole earlier today. This man did, Craig Lowndes for Team Better Electrical. Will the result be the same as Adelaide, or will we have a new winner for 2005? This man could very well be in the mix. Stephen Richards has been strong. He's been fast all weekend and wants to get back up where he feels and knows he belongs after a frustrating second race at Adelaide.
I have this feeling, and it suggests to me that I think there's going to be a fair bit of aggravation in this race. There are a few quick guys that are buried down the field. There's always been difficulty here threading the cars through 2, 3 and 4. It's very much a one-groove track in its racing line, and a lot of very evenly matched cars and drivers, and a lot of aggression out there.
There was a fair bit of aggro during qualifying. Moments away from Pukekohe. It's round 2 of the V8 Supercar Championship Series. And Lowndes starts from pole, and he creeps a little. Now they go. Race 1 here at Pukekohe. 36 laps and a drag race to turn 1 between Ford's 2 top men. And Lowndes on the inside, but Ambrose sets himself up beautifully for the next turn. Will he muscle Lowndes out of the way? He hits him, unravels him a little. Lowndes comes back, contact, and he's spun. This is Adelaide all over again.
That one was brewing. It went on for 300 or 400 metres. It started when they were pinching each other at turn 1. I think they'll look very carefully at Lowndes on the start line, and Marcus was looking to get himself in a position where he had the ideal line on the run to turn 2. All fairly self-explanatory. Marcus Ambrose leads. Greg Murphy, is it, who has moved up to second? Yes.
Russell Ingall muscles Stephen Richards out of the way. Contact between the Ford and the Holden. So it's Stone Brothers racing 1 and 3. Murphy is the sandwich, the meat in the sandwich for Super Cheap Autos Racing. He was frustrated after the top 10 shootout, thought he may have been able to get pole, couldn't do it, but now runs a strong second.
Ingall's made a pretty good start. Standing lap time for Ambrose, 62.6. A 1 second margin over Greg Murphy, Russell Ingall, Stephen Richards, Paul Dumbrell, Paul Morris. Isn't that a fantastic shot? Right at the apex of the chicane at turn 2.
Well, damage on the back of David Bernard's WPS Falcon. What will Team Better Electrical be thinking? How will Craig Lowndes be in the cockpit of the 888 Ford? Angry, that's for sure. As they bunch up, look at Paul Morris. He's come from 10th, he sits in 7th at the moment. Pushing hard, sorting themselves out early, and Max Wilson makes a dive for the inside. Tander, that's him, trying to force his way up. So too Rick Kelly, both HSV dealer team Commodores with a lot of work to do.
Let's have a look at the Zinger replay of the start, and Lowndes got some wheel spin, and then it was a real bog down situation for him. And looking back through the field, quite a number of people making tardy starts. You can see the difference in the quality of the surface of the road from left to right. We might have another look at that again a little bit later on to see whether Craig did flinch a bit earlier. Here's the contact between the two boys down at turn 2 and 3. And it results in Lowndes going off onto the gravel. Here it is again. Marcus a long way back here, and I reckon he could be in a bit of trouble for that one. We'll wait and see what race control thinks about it. But he's made contact with Lowndes' left rear wheel and then set off a ricochet.
And that's where it ended. He did it at Adelaide, but it's too short to do it here today, to come from 36th back up onto the podium. Incidentally, Lowndes is back in 31st position last time by, trying to claw his way up. You look at race leader Marcus Ambrose, the Pertec Ford, from Greg Murphy, from Russell Ingall, Richards, Stephen, that is. Dumbrell is 5th, where he finished at Adelaide.
Marcus Ambrose showing a lot of oversteer in that car, and in fact Greg Murphy's taken 0.3 of a second out of him on that lap, so Greg's showing more speed. It was very evident that Marcus had the back of the Pertec Ford very crossed up through turns 1 and 2 on that lap. He's vulnerable.
And Murphy is reeling him in. 2 car lengths, not even that in it now. Here he is, the guy who owns this place as far as race victories and round wins. Greg Murphy is all over Ambrose.
And these two don't share a giant love for each other. There was a bit of aggravation at the end of last year in the media conference at the Gold Coast. A bit of a war of words been exchanged between the two of them since then. So I fully expect it to be a tough competition. And once again, Ambrose showing a lot of oversteer with that car. Replay of the start. Watch Lowndes. Does he flinch? Yes, he does. Stops, checks himself. Now, he was stationary, probably at the point of the lights changing. But if he had broken, if his front wheels had penetrated the control line there, or he was moving at the start when the lights changed, he will be judged to have jumped the start. But I think he caught it. He flinched, stopped, and then if the light went out, he's okay. The only thing you've got to be careful of then, Lee, is if he was right at the forward limit of the line and he's penetrated that line, it's game over.
One guy who also suffered a fairly negative start was Mark Scaife. Scaife is back in 10th place, but a dynamic start, an opening handful of laps from Paul Morris. He's 6th, ahead of Jason Bright, behind Jason Richards. Dumbrell's been shuffled back to 9th, and Ellery just outside the top 10. Can Murphy eat into Ambrose's lead anymore? And Stephen Richards is applying the pressure to Wingle.
No, it's kind of normalised a little bit now. It was a 56.7 last lap for Marcus, a 56.5 for Greg Murphy. New lap record for Greg Murphy on lap 3, 56.2885. I'd suggest that now the tyre temperatures and pressures have come up on Marcus's car. He's probably also made some cockpit adjustments to the front and rear anti-roll bars in the car, perhaps to try and control it, balance it a little bit better. And he's now just neutralised the margin to half a second between he and Greg as we look at Mark Scaife in position 9.
No word on the Ambrose-Lowndes situation. Lowndes has worked his way up to 27th now. This is Dumbrell on Scaife. More to the point, Scaife working his way through.
And you may not have seen our coverage of round 1 of the championship, the Clipsal 500. You could well be asking yourself, what on earth are the green lights I'm seeing next to the A-pillars on the front of the cars? Well, that says that at this point that car has not, here's a replay of an incident up at the hairpin, and that's Garth Tander getting in strife there. And some days just turn out pretty evil, don't they? He was expecting such a good day. Car number 48 has also copped a black flag, and that's David Bernard.
Bernard, I think I just saw Bernard flash into the pits. Now Murphy, close, staying close to Marcus Ambrose. 7 of 36, the pit window is now open for that compulsory tyre change.
And that opened from lap 5.
Just spoken to Dave Ward, the technical director at Super Cheap Auto Racing. He's moved there in recent weeks from Ford Performance Racing. He tells, oh, there's been contact in pit lane. The 48 car, David Bernard and John Bowe have made contact. Bowe was exiting the lane. Bernard was on his way in with some trailing bodywork. And for a compulsory pit stop, there was contact in the lane. Bernard slewed. Bowe's exited the lane in between time. Boy. Just quickly on Murphy, they have made no changes to that car, according to Dave Ward, between the shootout and now. Murph believes it's a jet.
That could have been ugly.
Yeah, it would look very bad, didn't it? Russell Ingall comes in the Caltex entry, 40 kilometres an hour on the pit lane speed limit, and just completing that comment about the lights, when the compulsory tyre stop's been done, that light is switched off, that green light, that high-intensity light that you can see in the front of the cars, and that's just purely to help us from a television standpoint and also for the fans around the racetrack.
Go, all clear.
Ultra slick stop there by the Stone Brothers team for Russell Ingall. No traffic to contend with. They only changed rear tyres on that car. No other adjustments. Roll setter stayed the same.
New race leader, and Murphy dives in for the pits while passing Marcus Ambrose and being in the lead for a couple of corners. Murphy's dive for his compulsory stop as well.
It's unusual that after having to wind himself into a frenzy to be able to pass Marcus Ambrose, that Greg would then just peel straight in. But that's what they've chosen to do, and obviously Ambrose has got a car that could use a tweak or two just to settle it down as we ride with Greg Murphy.
Greg, we've got a pretty clear entry. Get yourself over nice and early. Line yourself up with
Super
the
Cheap
board.
Auto team on standby here. You can sense the tension. The boys have been rehearsing these pit stops throughout the course of the weekend. What are they going to do with Murphy? It's a change of rear tyres on car 51. They're lightly scrubbed rear tyres by the looks of it. Quick stop from Murphy just on 6 seconds. Oh, he struggles a little bit to get going. Into the pits also, Jason Richards and Mark Scaife. Scaife trailing Richards right out of the lane.
Look at this.
Oh, look at this. Marcus Ambrose, Stephen Richards. Ambrose has been taken around. Now Richards fires it up and gets going.
That's going to play into the hands of Greg Murphy.
Big time.
So Murphy, when it all settles down, is going to be in better shape. The bloke not in good shape here is Stephen Richards. We'll obviously find out more about this. Both have now gone to the pit lane. They've tangled at turn 5. Obviously an overtaking manoeuvre. We're on board here with Stephen. Sledgehammer and the tools at the ready.
Let's have a quick look at the steering. Don't go under the car, remember, put the stands in if you need to go under.
Talking about putting the stands in on the jacks, just for safety's sake. Damage to the front left corner. And they'll be delayed for quite a while they drag the splitter off that car and pull the guard away from the tyre. Probably going to require a bit of a tape up as well. Damage to that tyre.
Change of rears. They've had a quick look around the car and sent in. They had, as you mentioned, Neil, all the tools on standby in case they needed to change that any of the bodywork.
Greg, did you see whether they made any roll centre adjustment?
Negative.
Car?
No roll bar, no roll centre adjustments that I saw.
A bit of a puff going there, Greg. He must have had a fair run down the pit lane. We'll have to put him back on his fitness routine.
Well, we said at the top of the show, this track is conducive to tough, tight racing, and you've seen it already. In the opening 11 laps, you're looking at Stephen Richards' car. Much needed attention on the front end after contact with Marcus Ambrose. This is Murphy on Ambrose. Ooh, Murph's giving him a slight nudge there. Unsettled the back of the Pertec Ford. I'm here, I'm looking. Now this is Stephen Richards.
Yeah, well, Stephen was a long way down the side then. You need to see a little bit more of it and from all the various angles. Here we go, right on cue. Now, where was he? He's a fair way down. You know, I reckon that he was probably far enough by. Where it gets tricky now is because everything was pinned around the notion of the B pillar in previous years, it got very difficult because people were just diving to that point down the car and saying, well, I got to the B pillar and therefore it's okay.
And Greg Murphy, Russell Ingall, they're back in 13th and 14th, and two of the quickest guys on the track going hard at it.
And trading fastest laps at the moment, Greg Murphy, Marcus Ambrose and Russell Ingall. Ambrose has just done the quickest lap of the race and he's eclipsed the others by a tiny margin. 56.11, the fastest lap for Marcus.
Bargwanna's obviously gone a lap down in that stop, I would say for sure. He was into the pit lane. The team had the tyres stacked in the garage, but they had them laid out the wrong way and they've gone to put the front tyres on the rear. There was a lot of confusion, so Barg's a lot of time lost in that stop.
You cannot afford to lose time at Pukekohe Raceway, that's for sure. Rick Kelly has just been in and serviced. Here is Winterbottom, the second Orcon Ford.
Greg Murphy's just done the quickest lap of the race, 56 even. He was fastest in the first two sectors. Winterbottom done and dusted. What's interesting is that in workshops they're rehearsing two-wheel changes in 2.5, 3 seconds. In a live racing situation where everything's a little more under pressure, it's hot, it's congested, we're seeing time intervals here at 5, 6, 7 seconds, so they're losing a lot of time in a real racing scenario that it's not evident in the workshop.
The order is Bright, Radisich, Morris, Wilson, Wheel, McConville, Lowndes, Jones, Ritter, Tander. Remember, those guys yet to stop for their compulsory tyre stop. Murphy has, though. So has this man, Russell Ingall. In the Caltex Ford. Say this would be Cam McConville. Being sent in the Gary Rogers Commodore. Yes, it is. McConville's had a reasonable weekend here at Pookie. But we'll slide down the order after that.
Yeah, that's a good one, mate.
Phil Curtis on the radio to Cameron, make the outlap a good one. The outlap meaning this one that he's on now on cold tyres. You can make so much time by concentrating, using every last millimetre of the road, getting the tyres up to temperature and speed as quickly as possible, not yielding positions, which is what he's trying not to do at the moment with Jamie Whincup. Murphy's got another new lap record. He's further peeled a little bit of time out of the previous one. Lap 13, 56.0781 now is the number.
Gradually sneaking towards the halfway mark of this race, and it's a thrilling battle at the moment between Ingall and Murphy. In the order at the moment, they're 10th and 11th. On board with Russell now.
He benefited from the push and shove that was going on in the opening lap or two, despite still not really being able to nail these shootout situations comfortably on every occasion. Russell's in the game here in this battle. Car looks quick and well balanced. The car that surprised me in the opening laps, Lee, was Marcus Ambrose. His car looked to be a real handful. Oh, talk about a handful. Trouble here. Craig Baird's one of the participants. The Valvoline car is Andrew Jones, and I think it's Jason Bargwanna is the other car.
And Andrew Jones has been in the wrong place at the wrong time. And I would have to say every race meeting this year. He's had a tough initiation to his first full-time top-tier V8 supercar season. Laps to go here at Pukekohe, race 1 of the 3-race format this weekend. And Super Cheap Auto Racing's Greg Murphy is on a mission. He is flying. Remember, this is the team that Jason Bright drove for last year.
Angel is effectively second in his stall position.
Murphy made the switch. He now drives for them, and so far so good. Didn't finish the second race at Adelaide. That was a source of frustration for him. But boy, he's fired up. He lifts here, Neil, doesn't he? He finds something special.
He certainly knows what he wants from the car here, and cheered on by a large percentage of the crowd that clearly are huge followers. And this is in the Mark Larkham Racing Garage, and Jason Bargwanna with a lot of damage on the bonnet and all the associated radiator ducting and brake ducting on the front of that car. Being a sprint race, by the time they get that all solved, they might be able to get him out and have him classified and get a few points at the end, but it won't be pretty.
Paul Wheel, Greg Murphy's teammate, he's serviced and gone. And what a contrast for Jason Bargwanna. Last year, he finished 8th in the championship, was the second best Ford runner. This year, he's one of 3 not to score any points as yet in the V8 Supercar Championship Series.
There's a few things for the stewards and the IPO to investigate after this race, with the contact between Lowndes and Ambrose at the start, the incident in the pit between Bernard and Bow, these subsequent incidents that keep on unfolding up at turn 5, which is pretty much as predicted. Craig Baird's obviously got a story to tell as well.
Well, his car's in pit lane and there's plenty of damage to it. Craig, just walk us through the incident and I guess your take on it. What transpired? The car obviously won't be continuing at this stage of the race. We're just waiting for Craig to get his helmet off here. Just give us your side of the story, Craig.
Oh, mate, we were in trouble anyway. We broke a front anti-roll bar in about the second lap. And young Andy Jones, I think it was, just came in there way too hot. We were just trying to get to the end of the race, mate. We were in dire straits with a front anti-roll bar that had broken, so really in there in the hunt anyway, mate.
Hard luck, Craig Baird on home turf.
Need some better luck, mate.
Looked like Andrew got into the side of Craig, and Bargwanna had nowhere to go and just ended up in the back of all that.
In the reshuffle after the pit stops, and we're still waiting on Bright, Radisich, Morris, Wilson and Lowndes to execute their compulsory tyre stop. This man here, Mark Scaife, is effectively on the podium.
To get out of jail for him, isn't it, after a shootout that went wrong down on the approach to turn 4. On board here with Mark. Grabbing 5th gear at the peak of the hill. Different diff ratio, as we've mentioned.
Good job.
4th gear through turn 1. Rattling it across the ripple strip. Downshift for 2. This is where Lowndes went off 2 and 3. Little short shoot to 4. Getting on the gas nice and early, coming onto the back straight. It's a very harsh ripple strip on the exit there. Very easy to miss a gear on that exit. And last year, where they were doing about 265, 268 Ks down the back straight, it's about 275 this year, although they climbed to that speed a little slower with the taller diff. But they're doing about 7,000 odd revs down there now, where last year they were banging away on the rev limiter, which is nasty for the engine. 4th gear now through turn 6, where it's a little smoother than previous. More grip available now, which is made for these great speeds. 30 cars have broken last year's lap record. Lowndes has had his service now, compulsory stop done for him. They've tried to play a game to see whether they can recover from that turn 2 incident.
Well, Neil, another guy who had his compulsory stop was Paul Dumbrell, who managed to get himself to 6th in the shootout. Was a terrific result. He was in for his CPS stop, went back out, then had some contact with someone. The tyre was rubbing on the guard, so he's been back in again. So disappointing start for him.
The CPS, the compulsory pit stop for every driver to execute between lap 5 and lap 25 for tyres only at this race.
Might have a listen to Mark if we get a chance again at some point on board with him, and listen to the car from on board.
And here is Paul Dumbrell, pushing as hard as he can. He's got some work to do, as you heard Darryl just mention. So 4 cars yet to complete their stop, and it's Bright, Radisich, Morris and Wilson. Greg Murphy is effectively at the front of this field.
The officials here in pit lane tell me their colleagues in race control are flat out looking at videotape at the moment. As you mentioned, Neil, that pit lane contact between the 48 car and John Bowe is one that is under investigation, along with a number of others as well.
Yeah, they'll be busy down there. The videotape machine will have smoke coming off it by the time they get to the completion of the race. There's been quite a number of incidents, and that was always going to be on in this tight little racetrack. Team Kiwi entry, Paul Radisich, rocket fast yesterday, not quite as strong today.
Speed, green, switch to up position and to turn.
Yesterday, Paul was 3rd quickest after the 2-hour session. Dropped to 14th today in qualifying, and when you're in that mid-pack, it's hard work in there. Car number 10 being put back in the garage.
Paul Radisich is in, like you said, Neil. It's a pretty good stop for them. A little slow for the car to come up on the jack, so trying to leave that car out as long as possible. Hoping, as we mentioned earlier in this race, sometimes there's a carnage earlier on, but nothing as yet.
Compulsory pit stop window is about to close for those that have been playing the odds game. 23 laps recorded, closes at the end of lap 25. 36 lap race this first one, fastest man and a new lap record so far for Greg Murphy. There was an interesting little thing happening when these two got together before at the start of the lap for Jason Bright, because Radisich was trying to round him up on the outside and ended up well wide right here where it gets dirty. They sorted it out between them, no contact, but it was a bit of a nail-biting moment.
One driver we haven't paid credit to as yet, and if he can stay where he is, it'll be a very pleasing result with just over 10 laps to go, and that is Stephen Ellery for 888 Team Better Electrical. Ellery, of course, had that sickening crash at the Adelaide circuit for the Clipsal 500, where he did not compete for the rest of the weekend. Ellery is tucked in behind Murphy, Engel and Scaife and running 4th. Nice work.
Interesting, the synergy in the way the drivers and engineers work together. For the last few laps, Jason Bright and his engineer Phil Keat have been chatting over the radio about the prime time to pit and where he would fall out or where he would end up back in the order, depending upon when they chose to pit. They left it late in the game. Also had a word to Martin Collins, crew chief at Team Kiwi, prior to the commencement of this race. Radisich had good pace on Friday. They felt today he wasn't braking as late as the opening day and that the general balance of the car wasn't quite as good. They've worked on shocks in particular prior to this race to improve it.
All cars have now completed their compulsory pit stops. So the order is Murphy, Engel, Scaife, Ellery, Ambrose, your top 5.
More trouble here at the hairpin and contact between Matthew White and Anthony Tratt. And that looked pretty straightforward. Matthew just made contact with the back of the toll entry car and, well, fairly straightforward. Around he goes. Anthony grabs first gear in a flurry of smoke. He's off and away once again. That'll get his blood pressure up. Jason Richards has gone round there as well, and he was in a pretty lively battle with Todd Kelly. And he would be pleased about having got into the top 10. A yellow flag being displayed there in the background, so no overtaking. But I reckon as they were disputing their position, and he was getting a bit ragged, he was a little bit wide on the previous lap down at 2, 3 and 4. Now, he may have done it to himself, or there might have been some contact between them. We'll wait and see.
That is very handy work, too, from Todd Kelly. Not talking about if he contacted Jason Richards, but handy work to come from 20th to 6th. Here is the Zinger replay.
No, he did it on his own, so Todd was nowhere near him. He just under pressure, bowled a wide, and right at the very last moment, he was offline a little bit trying to protect from Todd. He was probably on the dirty stuff. A little less grip out there, and he's just turned the car around with the rear brakes locked. Ron Harrop, Kevin Murphy, and Ron owns a well-known engineering business in Melbourne. He's taken a role in this team now. He's an equity partner in the team with a consortium of people, and they've got a new Neil Burns engine in that car this weekend with a little bit more grunt than their previous iteration. They'll be a bit frustrated that their man's ended up outside turn 5 on the grass. but probably encouraged by the fact that they were at least in the top 10.
After being silky smooth at the Clipsal 500, this man, the defending series champion Marcus Ambrose, had contact with Craig Lowndes on the opening couple of corners, was involved in a shunt too with Stephen Richards, but has remained steady to be in 5th place.
They just haven't quite got the advantage that they've had at some other race circuits this weekend in the Pertec entry. And Marcus has been under a little more pressure from the field, involved in a couple of incidents, and that's not been a part of his game in the last year or so. He's been able to largely stay out of trouble, but certainly in the middle of it today. But still, on a day where there's been some biff and barge, he's still 5th. That's still solid points, 56 of them if he stays where he is at the moment, the race leader.
And this guy's ahead of him.
64, that's right.
Steve Ellery, I spoke with his father Bruce earlier today, and I said, what physical repercussions were there from that huge crash in Adelaide? And he said, I think he was actually being quite brave and not exactly telling people how hurt he was. He had a fair bit of whiplash, and he said maybe even some slight internal injuries as well. And yesterday was a big turning point when he got behind the wheel of the car, had a good productive day, and that gave him some confidence. But Ellery is being hunted down by Ambrose, closing laps of this first race. If Ellery can remain there, that'll give him plenty of confidence.
Window popping out of the side of the window bottom car, and the mechanical black flag's been shown to car number 20. They'll have to come in and rectify that so that it doesn't fly off into the path of another competitor, or even worse, into the crowd. And more trouble up here at the hairpin. This time it's Rick Kelly that goes around. One of the Valvoline Repco Cummins entries was involved in that. I didn't see which of them it was.
There could be oil down on the circuit, Neil. The last time through, the Autobahn entry of Simon Wills came across the start-finish line and a huge plume of smoke behind it, and that prompted a number of engineers to radio their drivers and say, hey, be cautious, there could be oil down.
Well, there's a massive amount of oil smoke coming out behind Simon Wills' car, and likely dropping oil, as you said, Greg. Thanks for that.
And that was Cameron McConville, I think, Neil, who contacted Rick Kelly.
And there is oil dripping out the back of that car, and wisely...
Went off at the hairpin, couldn't turn it, going at 5 kilometres an hour.
Wisely, Simon gets off the race line, and that's Oscar on the radio. And he brings that car to the pit bunker. Game over for him. So Marcus Ambrose in 5th behind Steve Ellery. Mark Scaife's having a pretty good run in 3rd, but you may be interested in the progress of Craig Lowndes, and he's in 15th at the moment after that contact at turn 2. They've yanked the perspex out of the passenger side front door. Mark Winterbottom's car, and he's set sail once again.
So Lowndes went last to 2nd at Adelaide in race 2. He's gone from last to 15th. He's done half the field here at Pukekohe. Steve Ellery, the 4th place car. Meanwhile, our race leader Greg Murphy enjoys a 3-second margin over Russell Ingall. He's staying at a pretty swanky hotel here in Auckland this weekend. It's a 6-star hotel, and the general manager of that establishment said to him earlier this week, if you win Pookie this weekend, Murph, I'll give you the penthouse on Sunday night. It's $3,200 a night.
Not a bad incentive, is it? It's only just a petty cash for Murphy, such a high earner over here. Car number 52, Matthew White, has also copped a drive-through penalty for his part in the incident up at turn 5.
Now, for all of you who have spent $30 or more at Super Cheap Auto and have already entered into the V8 Muscle Car Mania competition, here's your chance for bonus entry. Simply SMS the code on Murph's dash. As you can see, it is SV8, and you can text it as many times as you want to the number on your screen. Now, for Australian viewers, it's SMS 1977 5151, and for everyone here in New Zealand, SMS 8844. And this week's winner will receive a Holden SV8 Commodore valued at $45,000 plus an extra $5 grand of Super Cheap Auto products, which is not a bad prize. And there are the necessary numbers. Good luck, and you can SMS it as many times as you like.
Looks like being a great start to the championship for Super Cheap Racing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Greg Murphy just in sync so much with this track. He's got a margin at the moment of 2.6 seconds over Russell Ingall. I thought Russell might have been able to do more to close that gap down, but they're also probably at this point in the race just thinking about neatly coming home in the positions they're in at the moment, managing tyres. Got a big day of activity in races 2 and 3. Another strong performance this weekend from Paul Morris, currently running in 10th position.
And I think simply by having a teammate has breathed new life into that team this year, Neil. With, when I say teammate, it's not really a team because it's Team Kiwi. Here's Lowndes working on the back of Paul Wheel, looking for a way through. couldn't quite get there. This is the fight for 14th place.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there with regards to Paul Radisich and Paul Morris. 2 cars in that program now, 2 good operators pushing that outfit further ahead. We'll just focus on this one, folks, because it looks pretty lively. Lowndes is on the hustle. He'll have a bit of steam coming out of his ears from what happened in the first couple of corners. He wants to make ground. He is currently down in 15th. Paul Wheel's defensive. They're all defensive, all protecting.
Oh, this could be ugly.
3 wide doesn't work here.
Switch back from Lowndes. He gets the drag race side by side on Wheel, but Wheel will have the better line.
He's not ideally positioned here, I can tell you. Oh, he got away with it. Craig Lowndes, holy smoke. That was probably in part due to the gentlemanly approach by Paul Wheel, who sniffed out of the throttle at just the right moment, because that would have been very ugly had Craig been stuck on the wrong side of the road there in the dirty part of the racetrack. Who's hassling the back of Cam McConville, and Craig's got a better car. It's on for young and old with these blokes at the moment. They're absolutely all over each other. And McConville's doing everything he can to hold on. Seaton's the one with all the workload. He's trying to find a way around the Holden and at the same time keep his old teammate at bay. And it was a fantastic contest up the door. He's got him. Seaton down the inside of McConville. Good move.
Savvy move. Very sophisticated. Now Lowndes goes. Wheel lines up for a shot, and John Bowes brought into this argument as well. Great racing here at Pukekohe. And look at poor old Cam McConville. He's been hung out to dry. He's lost 4 positions, now about to be 5 as Stephen Johnson makes a move. Inside run, they're all defensive.
They're driving down the white line at turn 5, and whenever there's this many guys this close, so much aggression and experience in that little pack, and very easy for something to go wrong. Oh, Lowndes looking again on the dirty line to go round Glenn. Decided it wasn't a good idea. He's got very good power down. Very good power down coming onto the back straight. Glenn knows that. He'll try and do what he can to make it as awkward for Craig as possible. They may be mates, but it counts for nothing in this race.
Former teammates. There's 5.5 kilometres to go until this first race is over. Murphy's doing it comfortably, 2.8 seconds.
Lowndes is strong here. Here, that he's in the throttle early. Makes a little bit of ground there. That'll give him a good position on Glenn at the other end of this straight. Glenn will know that. He'll drive down the white line.
Lowndes is running out of time and opportunities. Now he goes over the white line. Switches to the outside approach on Glenn Seaton, trying to force the veteran into a mistake. And now closes down on him. This will give Lowndes the inside run, but Seaton's so experienced, he knows that, and Wheel capitalises.
He's lost a spot. And Craig penalised himself then by sort of hanging on to the position where there's no real return from being on the outside there, and he may not get that back.
Advantage Paul Wheel too. He's mixing it up with some very experienced campaigners and is holding on to a solid position. Meanwhile, Greg Murphy, 6 victories in V8 Supercars here at Pukekohe, about to be 7. He's on his final lap. Final couple of turns. Listen to the crowd here at Pukekohe. This is exactly what they came to see for Super Cheap Auto Racing. He may not have got the pole, but Greg Murphy gets the win. Beautiful stuff from Murph.
Great drive, mate. Good stuff.
He sent this crowd home satisfied so many years.
That's a great stop, man.
And he brings up his first victory for Super Cheap Auto Racing.
Creek was saying great stop, but it was also a great car. He drove it well. The car was neat and clean the whole way. It looked as though it was balanced, looked after its tyres. If he keeps this up, they'll make him Prime Minister.
Some people might not argue with that decision.
Stay out of that one. 3.1 seconds was the margin between Murphy and Ingle at the checkered flag. Mark Scaife will be satisfied that he's out of jail after an average shootout performance.
There's Key's Wheel to the right there.
I'm glad she sorted that out for us.
It's all right. I know him well enough to get away with that one. There he is, a very satisfied Greg Murphy. But the job is not done yet. There are still 2 more legs to go. 2 more races in this triple header weekend here at Pukekohe. But he needed that one after his gearbox failed in race 2 at Adelaide. So valuable championship points for Greg Murphy.
Keeps him out of here because he was hanging around us too much at Adelaide. We're just happy to have him out there. He's done a great job, and all credit to him and his crew. They'd be very pleased with that. Puts him in the game. 64 points. Russell Ingles, solid second. Mark Scaife third. Stephen Ellery in that car. That's a very good performance for 4th. Ambrose, Radisich, recovery from him after great promise yesterday, as I detailed earlier. And here's confirmation of the unofficial results. Greg Murphy, Russell Ingall, Mark Scaife, Steve Ellery, Marcus Ambrose, Paul Radisich, Jason Bright, Todd Kelly, Paul Morris, and Jamie Whincup.
That's good. That's Jamie Whincup's second top 10 of the year, and for Paul Morris, that'll be a satisfying result as well. Wheel was in the thick of it. You saw it yourself in the last couple of laps, mixing it up with John Bowe and Craig Lowndes and Glenn Seaton. That was pretty awesome stuff, but it's time to celebrate for Greg Murphy. And
it's been a dream venue, this place, for him, Lee, hasn't it, in so many ways. You recounted the race victories he's enjoyed here before with the Kmart team. Now he does it with Super Cheap Auto, moving teams during the summer. This car has been quick, particularly through that first sector all weekend. Murphy didn't burn a set of new tyres until we got to qualifying today. And in the race, a terrific stop by the team.
Oh, awesome. You know, we were just running along, and our Marcus was sort of a little bit slower than what I thought he'd probably be, and then got up the inside of him, and we decided to come straight in and do the tyres change, and it was perfect timing. I mean, guys did a great job. Great job, awesome stop. You know, I can't fault it, and the car was just fantastic. It really is awesome.
Toward the end of the pit window there, you were on the phone to your engineer, Steve Henderson. You were saying, like, how many guys left to pit? You wanted to know how this thing was going to shake out. Were you concerned about the car toward the end of the race? Was it strong right the way through?
Yeah, it was pretty. I mean, it was as strong as what I could see behind me, and I just really wanted to know if anyone else was going to come out, because and then I knew how hard to push, and obviously had quite a good gap over Russell. There was no need to go too hard to, you know, for all the race if I didn't have to. So I just was keen to know how many more to come out, but that worked out perfectly. The boys did an awesome stop, and that's what we need to do, and the pressure was on. They did it.
Top start to the weekend. Well done.
Absolutely awesome. Thanks, mate.
Keys Wheel and the team will celebrate that one, the first win under the Super Cheap Auto Racing banner, and congratulations all round for Greg Murphy. His younger teammate didn't do a bad job either. Paul Wheel just outside the top 10. And there's some interesting things to talk about within the top 10. Todd Kelly came from 20th to 8th. That's a mighty effort. And both cars coming out of the Paul Morris Motorsport team finishing in the top 10, with Paul Radisich for Team Kiwi in 6th and Morris in 9th. That's quite outstanding.
Lots of good stories to tell there, and some interesting things will come from this race. I mean, several teams have got themselves back into a position where they can battle, and there's also going to be some discussion after the race, no doubt, about who did what to who and whether any penalties apply from that.
Well, Russell Murph's got something with this place.
He certainly has. He's a quick little Kiwi, isn't he? But look, I can't complain. You know, we started off 5th, had a really good start, picked up a couple of posies. The guys picked me up another couple in the pit stop, so, mate, you can't ask for much more than that. We've got to tune her up a little bit. She started to suffer towards the end of the race a bit, but, mate, we'll give her a bit of a tweak tonight, and see if we can give old Murph, that tricky bugger, a bit of a run.
What were you suffering with?
Just a little bit of rear, you know. The old hairpin's pretty hard on tyres, you know, so it really gives the rears a bit of a workout. We stopped very early too. We were one of the first to stop, so I did a lot of work on the rear tyres. But, mate, we'll tune her up and we'll give it a run tomorrow.
Go get them.
Absolutely.
Look forward to seeing Russell in the mix tomorrow. We congratulate Mark Scaife also for finishing on the podium in 3rd place in this first leg of 3. And we look forward to finding out very shortly what the officials thought of several incidents in the opening race here at Pukekohe.